What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Nerdy Professor Podcast, where we talk about everything black, bold, and beautiful. On today's special episode, we're going to take a bit of a turn and discuss a celebration that goes far beyond turkey and pumpkin pie. We're going to take a look at the origin of Canadian Thanksgiving, then look at the holiday from an Indigenous perspective, and lastly, draw a parallel with the Black Canadian population. Thanksgiving in Canada, or Canadian Thanksgiving, is celebrated on the second Monday in October. This timing is a little different from Canada's down south neighbors who celebrate on the fourth Thursday in November because it aligns with the harvest season, making it a natural time for giving thanks for the bountiful crops of the year. Canadian Thanksgiving's early origins began back in 1578 when explorer Martin Waldseemüller held a feast in Newfoundland. This event was a celebration of gratitude for a successful voyage and survival in the New World. It marked one of the earliest instances of European settlers giving thanks in North America, blending European traditions with the new land's context. Early European settlers learned from indigenous agricultural practices, including crop cultivation techniques and the significance of seasonal cycles, which influenced their own Thanksgiving celebrations. Thanksgiving shares roots with various European harvest festivals that celebrated the end of the harvest season. These festivals often included feasts, music, and communal gatherings centered around gratitude for the crops. In the 17th and 18th centuries, settlers began to hold their own harvest feasts, incorporating elements from both their European backgrounds and the indigenous traditions they encountered. Throughout the 19th century, there were numerous calls for a formal Thanksgiving. Various provinces celebrated Thanksgiving at different times, leading to a patchwork of Thanksgiving celebrations. The concept of a National Day of Thanksgiving gained traction in the context of the American Civil War, where President Abraham Lincoln declared a National Day of Thanksgiving. This influenced Canadians' discussions about a similar observance. In 1879, the Canadian Parliament officially declared Thanksgiving a national holiday to be celebrated on a specific day. Initially, it was set in the last Thursday in November, similar to the US celebration. The date of Thanksgiving changed several times until finally it settled on the second Monday in October in 1957, reflecting a desire to align the holiday with the Canadian harvest season. Long before any European settlers decided to pull up, there were hundreds of diverse indigenous countries, or nations as they are called today, with millions of indigenous peoples across Canada and North America. Gratitude and generosity were the foundational principles of many, if not all of these nations' teachings for living a good life in harmony with Creator, humanity, and the earth. Among other things, and in diverse ways, indigenous people celebrated harvests with rituals that honored the earth, the seasons, the Creator, and community. These gatherings emphasized gratitude for the land and its resources, with practices varying wildly among different indigenous nations. An example of these types of celebrations would be the Hodonose Harvest Festival. The Hodonose celebrated the bounty of the three sisters, corn, bean, and squash. This festival involved communal feasting and giving thanks to the earth for its gifts. Many indigenous communities held seasonal ceremonies that marked changes in nature, incorporating storytelling, music, and dance to connect with the land. The arrival of European settlers brought changes, including land dispossession, broken treaties, and the imposition of foreign cultural practices. These actions disrupted the traditional ways of life and resulted in significant trauma for indigenous communities. Many indigenous traditions were suppressed or marginalized, leading to a loss of cultural practices and knowledge systems that had been maintained for thousands of years. For many indigenous peoples, Thanksgiving can evoke mixed feelings. While it is a time for gratitude, it also serves as a reminder of the historical injustices indigenous people have faced. The celebration can be seen as a symbol of colonization, making it difficult to fully embrace the holiday in its mainstream form. The indigenous perspective of Canadian Thanksgiving is complex. It is rooted in deep traditions of gratitude and community. As Canada continues to navigate its complex history, recognizing and honoring indigenous perspectives, it is essential for fostering a more inclusive and respectful understanding of this holiday. As we reflect on the rich tapestries of indigenous traditions surrounding Canadian Thanksgiving, it's also important to consider the diverse histories that shaped Canada. Just as indigenous people have their own narratives of resilience and community, so too do Black Canadians. Black people arrived in Canada in different ways. For example, the Black Loyalists came after the American Revolutionary War. Thousands of Black Loyalists fled to Canada seeking freedom and a new life. Many settled in Nova Scotia, where they established communities and contributed to the early development of Canada. Throughout the 19th century, Canada became a destination for enslaved people escaping the United States via the Underground Railroad. This influx not only shaped local communities, but also enriched the cultural landscape of Canada. The history of Black Canadians is marked by resilience in the face of systemic racism and discrimination, with their experiences informing the broader narratives of Canadian identity. Black Canadians often incorporated traditional dishes into their Thanksgiving celebration, blending classic Thanksgiving food with unique cultural influences. For example, dishes such as macaroni pie, jollof rice, curry chicken, and sweet potato pie may be featured alongside turkey stuffing and the not-so-good pumpkin pie. These culinary practices serve as a way to celebrate their heritage and create a sense of community during the holiday. For many in the Black community, Thanksgiving is not only a time for family and food, but also a moment to reflect on the struggles faced throughout history. It's an opportunity to honor ancestors who fought for freedom and equality. Traditional Thanksgiving narratives often overlook or simplify the contributions of Indigenous peoples to the holiday. While settlers may celebrate their harvest, the history of land dispossession and cultural erasure faced by Indigenous communities is often ignored, creating a narrative that is incomplete and potentially harmful. For many Indigenous peoples, Thanksgiving can serve as a reminder of the injustices they have faced, including colonization, forced assimilation, and the legacy of residential schools. This perspective contrasts sharply with the mainstream celebration of gratitude and abundance, prompting a need for reflection and acknowledgement of the historical wrongs. At this moment, I want to plug an absolutely fantastic professional development course called The 4 Seasons of Truth and Reconciliation. This is an immersive program designed to deepen understanding of Indigenous histories, cultures, and the impacts of colonialism in Canada. Using a seasonal framework, it encourages reflection on truth and reconciliation themes. The parallels between Indigenous perspectives and those of the Black Canadian community during Thanksgiving highlight a rich tapestry of experiences that shape the Canadian identity. By recognizing these histories and celebrating cultural contributions, Canadians can foster a more inclusive understanding of Thanksgiving that honors all facets of the nation's diverse heritage. As we celebrate this Thanksgiving, let's remember that it's not just about the food on our tables, but the stories we tell and the connections we build. By recognizing and honoring Indigenous perspectives and our treaty obligations, we enrich our understandings of this holiday and the land we live on. Take the time to learn about the local Indigenous communities in your area, learn and understand their traditional practices and the significance of certain foods they harvest. Each small step contributes to a greater understanding and respect for the diverse cultures that make up the Canadian identity. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining. I hope you learned something. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to drop a like and consider following the podcast for more insightful content. Check out the links below for more information on Indigenous communities in your province, as well as links to courses that I recommend. As always, I welcome your feedback and suggestions for future topics. Until next time, peace.